Florida is front lines to the climate crisis. We saw people lose their property during Irma, and so much damage. It went through Cuba, it went through Florida. It created the most damage in Cuba, Florida, and North Carolina. $50 billion worth of damage. And this doesn't include damage of private property. That's just damage to public lands. So obviously it becomes harder and harder to insure your home when it's exposed to the accelerating storm surges in the climate crisis. This is a huge, huge, sweeping topic. So let's start going back and forth first with the insurance portion of this. What are your plans in DC to help homeowners in Florida deal with this issue?
Yeah, Megan, and just this weekend, actually, I don't know if you're aware of all the work that Senator Sheldon Whitehouse is doing.
He came to work with you on your campaign. That's wonderful. Yeah, so if everybody knows, Sheldon Whitehouse is one of the climate champions in Congress. He started the Climate Corps, right? He was one of the people who worked on that, right? And I think he's on the Green New Deal, but I actually remember being introduced to him because I worked with Mothers for Climate Action in trying to lobby in DC. So tell me a little bit about your alliance with him.
So the reason, talking about insurance, what he says, which is absolutely correct, is that this insurance crisis that we have in Florida is a Republican-made climate change crisis. Yes. They deny the effects of climate change.
Yep.
Rick Scott has been the leader in that. When he was governor, he denied the term climate change from being used in any of the state agencies here. And now, of course, DeSantis is doing the exact same thing. He voted against over $1 billion that would come to our state to invest in resilient infrastructure. When I was in Congress, I really led the effort to bring down $200 million in Everglades restoration. I oversaw FEMA. You're talking about these severe storms that come and wipe out communities. It was really interesting because there was absolutely bipartisan support on overseeing FEMA, because a lot of these Republican legislators have communities in Louisiana, for example, that are dealing with the same thing. But we need to find ways to invest in green energy so that we can reduce the price of electricity bills that we're facing in our state. I have a plan to do that. If you're listening and you really care about this issue, please go to my website, debbieforflorida.com, and you'll see my affordability plan. There's a bill that I can lead in the Senate that would lower property insurance rates by 25%. It's such a crisis, Megan. People are being forced out of their homes. I've met seniors that now have to go back to work just to pay for their insurance bill because they've gone up by 300%. It's really a serious issue here in the state, but it will continue to go up first if we don't have the leadership that we need here in the legislature and in the federal government to deal with these big insurance companies, right? Yep. Who they give a lot of money to these politicians, including Rick Scott. Rick Scott has gotten like hundreds of thousands of dollars from the insurance business.
Yeah, so people have to give debbieforflorida.com donations because she's not taking insurance money. She's taking grassroots support, and that's really important to help fund her campaign.
Yes.
50 days we have to get her elected.
Everyone. And Megan, you're so right. There is so much energy here. People haven't realized we can win. We need the Senate seat to keep the Senate majority, by the way. So we can't invest in climate, energy efficiencies. We can't do that. If Republicans get the Senate, believe me when I tell you, everyone, and Megan, you know this, Republicans are in the pockets of big
fossil fuel industry. Yes,
they're in they will not do anything. All they want to do is continue to enrich themselves, like Rick Scott in the Senate. But this is a crisis for our children. We have to protect our environment. We have to make sure that we have good quality water here. We've seen these toxins also from a lot of the development in the state of Florida that have infected our waterways. And actually in 2018, they called Rick Scott Red Tide Rick because he repealed some of those protections for our waterways, and it caused a huge fish kill. I don't know if you remember, Megan, but that happened. And so there's a lot we need to do. And
Yeah.
invest in green energy, lower insurance, the insurance rates for Floridians, make sure that we continue to transfer to more green energy options. We need to get away from fossil fuels. It's not going to happen overnight. It won't happen overnight, but we have to start taking the right steps.
Yeah, we need a drawdown plan. And I know that you've already invested in coral restoration, which acts as a storm barrier for anyone living along the coastline of Florida. Coral is really important in a storm surge in order to help keep your home safe. It also contributes, it's an essential part of biodiversity in our oceans. And I know you also invested in restoration of the Everglades while you were in Congress. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I know all Floridians appreciate that, because the thing that makes Florida really special is its beautiful and unique ecology, among other things.
And you know, we tend to be, I was very proud that we brought funding, and that was with a very conservative Republican in Congress who also happened to care a lot about coral reefs. And so we had this bill that we wrote together to bring funding to protect our coral reefs. And for those of you watching, we have the only living coral reefs along our Florida coast in the continental United States. So if you ever want to come snorkel or scuba dive, come down. I have a scuba diving ad that I'm going to send you, Megan, so that you can check out. But the good thing is that I went scuba diving recently, and you're seeing the growth in the corals. If we do some of the right things, you do see the corals coming back. The problem is that also the warming of the oceans has really hurt our coral reefs down here in Florida. And that's why dealing with the effects of climate change is so important.
Yes, we have to draw down fossil fuels and restore nature at the same time. And you've already shown that you're dedicated to doing that. And we hope to get you into the Senate so that you can vote for sweeping change in that regard.